I found myself there hiding behind the tour buses as the shooting was happening, and just in this state of like, man, if I don't make it out of this situation, there was a part of me that felt like I hadn't lived the life I was meant to live. And yet, if you had told me when I was a lot younger that I would have acquired all these things and built this life and had a wife with 3 kids and the friendships I had, I would have said, no way, this is exactly what I would have hoped for. But there was something that was missing.
Cal Callahan is the host of The Great Unlearn and the author of a brand new book called Unlearn. He spent 18 years as a trader, checking every box that was supposed to add up to a fulfilling life, and then one night in Las Vegas, hiding behind a tour bus during the Route 91 mass shooting, he realized something was missing. He shares a great perspective, really, on all things life. I'm Brooks Coleman. This is the Nothing Is Wrong podcast, and here's my conversation with Cal Callahan. All right, welcome back to the Nothing Is Wrong podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Cal Callahan. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Brooks. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course. And super exciting day for you yesterday. New book launched on Amazon. And I read this description of it yesterday, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to read that to kick this off because it couldn't be a better description of this journey in general. So here it goes. Your book is called Unlearn, Letting Go of Who You Never Were to Become Everything You Already Are. At some point, if you're lucky, the life you've built will stop making sense. The strategies won't deliver. The titles won't hold weight. The mirror will feel unfamiliar. That's when the invitation shows up wrapped in confusion, pain, or a faint whisper you can't ignore. That's what happened to me. A trader at the top of his game, a father on autopilot, a man doing all the right things, and quietly unraveling inside. This is the story of what came next, a journey through the uncomfortable middle, through the reckonings and revelations, through the peeling away of every should until only truth remained. Unlearning isn't about fixing yourself. It's about freeing yourself. It's about meeting your life as ceremony and your mistakes as medicine. It's about waking up to the realization that you've always had what you were searching for. If something in your life doesn't fit the way it used to, this is your permission slip. You're not broken, you're remembering.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. I feel like I could just hit end on the podcast right now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm just really kind of feeling into you reading that, and yeah, it brings up a lot for me. Just it's, I think for so many men in particular, we hit midlife crisis. It's funny. I was talking to him. He's kind of my business partner and really close friend, and we were talking about kind of the book launch, and he's like, Cal, for lack of a better term, you're kind of like the midlife crisis guy, like in the sense that this book, and certainly with my podcast, I'm exploring these challenges that I've gone through, and others, as I bring people onto the podcast, and it's super challenging because for me, the crisis really becomes, it's an opportunity. As we start to awaken to a new way of being in our lives, I love the framework of, I don't know if you've heard this concept of resume virtues and eulogy virtues. And these resume virtues are simply those things that we work on through the early parts of our lives to create success and to really build the resume. These are the things I'm good at. This makes me hireable and can create, financial abundance and so on and so forth. And I think at a certain point, we start to orient towards these things that we want people to remember us by, at our funeral, in the eulogy. What are people going to be saying about me? And for me, it was like, yeah, it's not like that I was a traitor and that I did this and did that. It's like, who actually am I? And when those things start to pop up in life, it doesn't really jive with the story that I was told growing up on what fulfilling life was all about. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of us is to have this framework of like, oh, I do this, I'm going to be successful and I'm going to be happy, forever and ever. And, in my experience, it's just not the case. And so there's like a reckoning between these two things that needs to happen. And for me, like kind of swung away from the resume for a bit into the eulogy stuff. And that's not it either, but it's really, for me, it's about really exploring the greater meaning for being here, whatever that means for each of us. And then through that, like, inquiry, so much of the things that I was taught were just not true. And, the further I kind of dive into those things, I don't want to say it was all a lie, but so much of it is untrue. So much is given to other people's experiences that they're telling us this is what you do. But when we have our own experience, it doesn't deliver like we thought it was going to. And so I really want the book to be almost like not even really a guide, like a companion along that journey of like, look, here are all the ways that I felt out of sorts, where my things weren't making sense and how I explored the unknown, the stuff that I hadn't really maybe experienced on my own. And, I had the good fortune of being surrounded by, some really important mentors along the way that helped guide me and let me know, like, you're not crazy. Yeah, man. Like, it's very different than what we're told. And, so the book is definitely vulnerable. Um, I've certainly shared a lot of this stuff on my podcast, but just kind of in one, it's a very readable, very accessible, kind of book. I think it can give people, my hope is it gives people some peace that, again, with the name of your podcast, Nothing is Wrong, like nothing is wrong. It's uncomfortable, but we know in our own experience that that's where the real growth and understanding, and that's how we get to know who we are in those moments. And so now when I'm feeling that bit of tension in my life, instead of reverting into my cave or going into a shell and not wanting to feel the things, I try to just be aware that, okay, there's something here that wants to be released. There's an old part of me. There's an old story. There's something that I believed from a long time ago that it still has its grips on me. And so hopefully I can kind of face it and then move through it rather than have that pattern continue to repeat and repeat. And a lot of the work I've done with different plant medicines has helped bring those things to light. That's been super helpful. Being a part of men's groups, I've had a few that are really powerful. And, really in these men's groups, it's not all about doing this men's work. One of my men's group meets once a week and we don't do anything structured around men's work, but on a given Monday when we're together, there are groups of guys that may be going through some stuff and they'll be talking about it in a smaller group. Sometimes it's the full group, but ultimately, I haven't been on this journey on my own. And I think that's one of the big challenges for men today is they aren't as fortunate to be in a community like I'm in where it's very top of mind, that we're questioning these things and we're curious. And so hopefully, through the book and the podcast, it lets people know like you're not alone. And even though my story is different, the themes are very consistent, I feel like, across, kind of most men's experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how you highlighted for men specifically. I mean, mine, a lot of what your story brings out for me is just this drive to I need to contribute, I need to be useful to everyone else. And for me, that turned into, I was pretty good at math. I was pretty good at school. And this clinging to like, how can I show I'm smart? How can I contribute right now? And having that running makes hanging out and just connecting terrifying. Because it's like, what do I do? How do I be useful here? So that's like, as I've heard your story in a few different podcasts and heard you talk about it, I think what really has resonated for me is like you in your 40s, 50s?
Yeah, 54.
54. Okay. It's like you're not some person who's, living in Bali without without kids and a spouse and a career. For people that aren't familiar with you, can you share just who you thought you were 20 years ago or whatever resonates, like, because I think that's so key for people to hear instead of just somebody, kind of just talking about things to talk. You've really lived this full circle journey.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that's why I felt so compelled to start sharing this on, with the podcast back, it'd be 6 years ago now. Because I felt like I had lived a pretty kind of normal life in that sense. And in a lot of ways, like a lot of men, to your point, like over-identified with this achiever, provider, this idea that, to your point, I wanted to be useful. I wanted to matter.
Mhm.
In a group of people, I wanted to be someone that could be relied upon to gather resources, to do whatever I want to, just like a lot of us, so that whatever the lens of achievement looked like, you know, it's really what we're taught. And um, I started out of college. I went to Chicago. I was a trader at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and then the Board of Trade for, I guess, I was there for 18 years. I traded for 17 years. And, I was good at it and definitely enjoyed that identity of being a trader. And I was really into fitness. I was in really good shape. So I was checking a lot of these boxes that a lot of men think are like, great. Ooh, these are cool things for my resume. And that's great. Awesome. Do those things and show discipline and structure and resilience and do hard things. And I think that's amazing to have those practices. But for me, it it became kind of everything for me, as being, my wife and I actually just celebrated our 26-year anniversary yesterday too, which was kind of cool that the book launch happened then. Which wasn't necessarily on purpose, but when I was getting ready to launch the book 3+ months ago, they're like, okay, you need to pick a date. It's got to be a Tuesday because that's when Amazon, launches, and it's got to be at least 10 weeks from now. It's like, okay, so I went 10 weeks out, and then my wife and I were in Japan for 2 of the Tuesdays, and then I was away last Tuesday, and so I was like, okay, I guess it's this next Tuesday, and it's our anniversary. So even though it looked like I planned it, it was like literally like the first open date that I was back here in Austin. So anyway, um, this this over-identification for me in particular as a provider, I had kind of checked that box of providing, and let's just say in a financial sense, for my family. Honestly, quite a long time ago. And even as I started to do this work, I recognized that there was like some dissonance between like over identifying with that archetype of, the father, really providing. And it took me a long time to really get through it. When those feelings come up for me when I'm not providing enough, it's a lot shorter kind of refractory period where I kind of laugh like, dude, you've been ridiculous. Like, of course you have. Like, what is required now is like deeper presence, like literally just being there, connecting, my wife, my kids, friends, and then just seeing what magic comes out of that, as well as like bringing in those, kind of putting those resume virtues in their proper place. It's a classic, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. And so for me, it's really zooming out and not like checking to make sure all our assets are doing exactly what they need to be doing, and just being in these different seasons, particularly over the last couple of years of having to throw out my financial playbook that I'd used for the last 25 years, and it ain't working anymore. So that's been quite it's been pretty confronting. It's been relieving, but also I'm being asked to do it differently when it worked for a long time, but not for the reasons I thought. I thought it was more because I had more of a hand in it, but so much of it was luck too, and just like getting real honest with myself about, kind of my strengths in that area, and yeah, and just allowing that to be in its proper place. And so it's, again, I think the book really lays out this honest assessment of how I was kind of doing all the right things on paper, but it lacked, an authentic orientation to this other piece, this kind of legacy piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really seems like it'd be easy for someone to see like, oh, you're on the other side of this long career, a lot of financial success, whatever it may be, material success. And I think it's like, it's easy to imagine that, oh, the problems aren't as, quote unquote, problems aren't as challenging. But like, as I'm listening to you talk, it's like, this mind of ours will just find a new one, right?
Oh yeah.
Now we have
Oh
it.
yeah.
How do we keep it? Now we have it. How do we grow it? How do we do this and this? So, yeah, it's it's hilarious, but also so perplexing to just think about this. Everybody hears it. Everybody hears, hey, it's not going to make you happy.
Right.
And we're just like, yeah, 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 but yeah, I think it is. Like, but I'm just going to I'm just going to keep doing it. Like, what do you think was this a slow burn across your career? I mean, I know I've heard you talk about the Vegas shooting,
Yeah.
that was kind of a wake up, but as you look back, was there always kind of a hint of like, what were the moments along the journey that you were like, this is kind of a fucking scam here? Like, this isn't making me happier.
Yeah, there were some whispers. It's funny too. In the book, I literally say, if someone had told me that having this financial success wouldn't make me happy, I'd tell them to pound sand. Like, of course, I would be different. Literally, as you're saying that, I'm like, I almost said that word for word in the book because it is so common.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the exception. Like, who's to say? Like, plenty of people look happy when they've had financial success. I would say the last couple of years of trading, which would have been like 2012 and 2013, I just got the sense that like that career was coming to an end, and I felt like I was just wasting my time. The business was kind of slow in the pit, and we were taking more risks to make less money. It just didn't have any of the energy for it. And so I read a book by David Data called The Way of the Superior Man. And when I was reading that, like one of the chapters just like totally hit me. And it was like, oh, you're at the end of this cycle with this career that, you maybe thought you were going to be in longer. Now, granted, I was there for 18 years, but I've got friends who are still there 25 plus years later. And, for me, I wouldn't have been surprised if I was there for 25 years, but there was It was kind of the perfect storm that the firm did, we didn't make money for a couple of years. I was taking more risk as being a partner. I'm like, what am I doing? And I was getting into fitness and lifestyle and really learning a lot about that, nutrition and life coaching. And that's what kind of drew me into something that was more important than, just kind of growing the bank account. So yeah, I would say leading up to that, so 2013, I leave. And then in 2017, I find myself in Las Vegas, at the Jason Aldean, Route 91 festival, but the Jason Aldean show on that Sunday night. And that's when the mass shooting occurs. And what's interesting, as an aside, a lot of people forgot that even happened, which is a whole nother podcast conversation that deals with so much of the cover up of that experience. Like that, the biggest mass shooting on US soil was out of the news cycle in 3 days. Like that is just fascinating.
What the hell is that?
Right? Well, I have a good friend of mine here who lives in Austin now, who did a podcast with Tucker Carlson, Ian Carroll, at the end of the year, and he unpacks it over the course of like 2.5, 3 hours, and it is fascinating. Again, for another time. But I found myself there, hiding behind the tour buses as the shooting was happening, and just in this state of like, man, if I don't make it out of this situation, because we had no idea really what was unfolding, I was like, sad, not the right word, unfulfilled, not quite the right word, but there was a part of me that felt like I hadn't lived the life I was meant to live. And yet, if you had told me when I was a lot younger that I would have acquired all these things and built this life and had a wife with 3 kids and the friendships I had, I would have said, no way, this is exactly what I would have hoped for. But there was something that was missing, and it kind of took me a while to figure out what that was. But when I got home to Austin the next day, that was on a Monday. Then on a Tuesday, I got together with a group of people to do some NAD plus IV therapy. And some of those people were Lance Armstrong, a dear brother, Kyle Kingsbury, who shows up in the book a fair amount because he took me through my first medicine journey. But he was really the linchpin for me, the portal for me to start to get to know myself in a new way. And certainly one avenue was through the use of psychedelics, but it was so many other things that I hadn't been exposed to. And I just started to look at life through a different lens. And it was about 18 months later that I realized, like, oh, I'm just trying to figure out why I'm here, because it's not all the reasons that I was told. And so that was the big wake up, I would say, would be Las Vegas, even though it took a while for me to understand that that's what was kind of awoken in me. And then since then, it's been 8+ years of this fairly, at times, intense existential inquiry of like, why am I here? And I'm willing to try all the things to really discover my blind spots and to understand the stories that I've been believing since I was a little kid. And some of those things feed directly into the things that made me successful as a trader. So it's great. Like this wanting to be useful, wanting to be loved, wanting to be liked by people. And it drove particular behavior. Great. But it wasn't until I kind of made peace with those things and let go of the story that I'm not lovable, that I need to be liked, that I need to be a particular way in a particular group. Like as I've done the deeper work, I've really started to understand who I am and I get to show up as that person in any setting. And that's something that's, I would say, really only happened over the last year. And in particular, I would say over the last 4 or 5 months, I've gotten a real clear sense of who I am. And so I have deep comfort no matter who I'm with. And that feels really good to not have to track, okay, what's the avatar I'm showing up, seriously, it's so fucking tiring. But you don't know until you know that this is what I was doing it my entire life. Subtle, but it was happening because I could feel like I get into certain groups. I just feel a little off. I feel a little, the words didn't flow so easily, and I was maybe trying to present a particular way. And, as I just said, fuck it, like, I don't need everybody to like me. I'm not going to say things to just stir it up, but I am who I am. And if I can just be impeccable with sharing who that is and get more and more clear with who I am, and again, continue to do the work to see my blind spots. And again, I'm surrounded not only by, an amazing wife, my wife Peyton, but friends that really hold me to that. And if I'm saying some bullshit, they're gonna let me know. Maybe with humor in the beginning, but eventually they'll be like, dude, what the fuck? What's going on? And then, for anyone who has kids, like, there's really no greater teacher than those kids. They do not care. They like the nice things and all that. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, they call me on my bullshit because that's like I'm their dad. And so that is, I feel for, I think about people who have a lot of influence and they have financial success and they're single. And they're my age. Like, you're able to really insulate yourself. And I don't think people do it intentionally, but it's really comfortable. But your kids, you can't be insulated from your kids. They're gonna let you know. So yeah.
Yeah. So we have an 8-month-old, our first, and
Yes.
it's just so funny to me that, like, well, there's so many layers to this, but I'm like wanting to go meditate, and I'm like, why don't I just use sitting with my daughter who's crying or needs attention? It's such a funny thing because I look back to before having her and, the control with the routine and the meditation and whatever other practices I have. And now it's like, no, there's no better personal growth tool than having this. I mean, she was a screaming, crying baby for the first couple months.
Mm.
And there's no better practice than just sitting with that and allowing it. And, there's no one to blame. You can't blame this baby who has no idea what the hell's going on. Just sitting in that has been so much more powerful than everything I was doing combined before. It's so, so amazing.
Well, I love that this early on in your fatherhood journey that you are aware of that. It took me fucking years upon years. And so I always love, particularly when I hear dads that have this level of presence already. It's because we have all these practices and we do these things and they're really useful. But as you just reframed, like, can I be the calm in this chaos that's actually happening in life? It's not me sitting there meditating, which is great when the thoughts are going and trying to quiet it, whatever your orientation is to meditating. But there are so many opportunities. And I think for our kids, they show us, I'll just speak for myself. They've shown me where I'm not free, so can I just be relaxed when two of them are fighting, right? When my boys are in their teens and they're fighting when they're playing basketball, they're going to be fine. Even if they start throwing punches, they're going to be fine. Do I need to break it up, or do I just need to let them work it out and me know that they're going to be okay? Because, almost every single case of an incident like that, both of them are okay. Me intervening is actually going to stunt the cycle that they need to go through to repair whatever happened. And so there's so much of that control that wants to come in like, hey, calm down, stop that, cut the shit, and I think we all understand that, where that comes from, but like just allowing it to happen, and you can certainly be a part of the repair process if it's necessary, but there's so many ways, especially as the kids get older, that it's like new levels, new devils. They just start to show, they've shown me new areas that I didn't realize that I needed to work on. I mean, my kids are 23, 20, and 18. So it's, and I would say over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been a ride. It's they continue, I would say, and part of it is just my awareness to it, but I've grown so much through my relationship with them over the last couple of years. And they're giving me that opportunity, which is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sticking out to me a lot as you describe this, the appreciation for discomfort or anything that comes up. Because I think that is such a catalyst to I mean, that's everything, right?
We know, right? The shittiest things we've been through, there's been gold on the other side. It may take a while.
Yeah.
We don't want to go through the shitty thing, and again, part of what this work has allowed me to do is when I'm in it, hopefully it doesn't take me till I'm out of it to have an appreciation for, okay, like what's being asked of you right now? Because this sucks. I don't prefer it. I'd rather have things chill, go out and play golf, whatever, just be in flow of what I want to do. But I'm being asked, yeah, to sit with stuff. And I think it's really hard. I can just speak for the male experience, but it's really hard for us to feel the things we're meant to feel. So we're not taught that. We fucking grind on, we get it done. Just we're the rock, and all these things can be true. It just becomes much more. It benefits everybody when we can actually hold those things and feel the things we need to feel. And I think that's why a lot of us go to nicotine and caffeine and booze and cannabis and all these things, because it allows us to not feel. And so I say it with a lot of my friends, I've gone through it plenty with this like dependency on these different substances that change our state. And I don't necessarily think of these things through like an addiction lens. I feel like they're just giving us an opportunity to not feel what we're meant to feel. And it's less about a chemical dependency and more about a lack of courage and vulnerability to sit with the things. And in a lot of cases, men just don't even know it's an option. They haven't been, no one has demonstrated that for them in their lives. They don't even know it. And again, so hopefully the book sheds a little bit of light on that. Like, again, I love the name of your podcast. Nothing is wrong. It's just, doesn't mean it's always fun, but it's these things need to happen for us to change and grow. We need to let go of these old layers that no longer serve us and get curious about what they are.
Yeah, that feeling piece. I'm curious as you in your journey, because trading obviously quite analytical. For me, lately, especially the last year or so. I mean, number one, because for the longest time I'm an overthinker. I am an overthinker. I just need to get out of my head. I didn't redirect that anywhere. like to the body and to my feeling. And there's definitely a lot of there's like some weird resistance or frustration or shame or guilt around. Now I'm kind of bringing awareness to some of that numbness, like
Mhm.
when I'm not contributing, when I'm not working, when I'm with family and not exactly feeling much at all. And that's been a challenge because it's like, I'm here, I'm like, what can I feel? What can help me, be more here? And there's some quietness there, and I'm starting to notice it thaw out a little bit. But did you experience that at all? Like when you started pursuing this, were there things that immediately came up to feel, or did it, do you think the psychedelic work and other practices really accelerated that?
Definitely the psychedelic work and breath work, and I went to a few silent week-long silent meditations, and really just got curious about all these things: astrology, numerology, human design. Like I just wanted to be able to look at all the different lenses of my existence. And one of the biggest challenges, I love you brought this up, because one of the things I kept running into was, as I was doing the work and I would come back from ceremony and I'd be in integration and I would notice things changing in my relationship with my wife changing. And then I would get back into an old pattern, and we would have some tension, my wife and I. And then I would beat myself up like, when are you ever going to figure this out? When are you ever going to, like, come on, man, like you were doing well and now you're right back where you started. It's such a challenging process that if I could give anyone advice through my own experience, it, we're trying, like, I had a friend explain it to me. You're running a 10-minute mile. You're putting in all this work. Now you're running an 8:30. Now you're running an 8-minute mile. You're still not running a 4-minute mile, but you've come so far from where you were that, like, let's look at the progress. And when you step back into an old pattern, it's just information that it's still there. So maybe that's something to put a little bit more focus on how do I show up for my wife when she comes to present her needs, so that I'm not feeling like I did something wrong. That's not her language. That's my, like, oh no, have I done something wrong? Am I in trouble? Like kind of like an 8-year-old's mindset. And so now when that stuff comes up and feel like a little off, I kind of give a little chuckle to myself, like, oh, there you go again. And it's like I try to bring a little humor because I'm doing the best I can, just like everybody else. And I have grown a lot and I have revealed a lot of these blind spots, but I'm always going to be doing that. And so for me to think that there aren't going to be any more blind spots, silly. And so when they come up and I get into one of these old patterns, it's just information for me, like, oh, this is one to work on. But I think it's very easy for us who want to do things right. We want to get to the end of the task, whatever it is. We need to give ourselves a lot of grace. And I think that's been one of the biggest shifts I've felt over the last year or so, is just seeing, like, truly seeing that this is just a journey, that I'm here to learn about myself. And the more information, the more things that can reveal parts of me that I'm not seeing, amazing. And just try to have fun with it, be curious, and know that it's ongoing until I'm not here anymore. But I think we could put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be better. And I think just creating so much of awareness around these things can be challenging, because it brings up all these things that we didn't know we were maybe needing to heal or let go of. But without the awareness, like, we're just going through our lives thinking we're doing it exactly how it's meant to be done. And I think as we start to awaken, there is that tension, that midlife opportunity to grow into other parts of ourselves that are more the legacy piece while carrying the gifts of that resume world.
Yeah, beautiful. I think the curiosity you bring to all these practices is so key because it can very quickly, for me, it very quickly turned into just a filter for, hey, what else is wrong? What else needs to be fixed?
Mm-hmm.
And the way you're describing, I mean, there's a million practices out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are so many options, and going at it with curiosity, uh, and I think anchoring to what's getting in the way right now, not, I mean, one of my mentors calls it rummaging. Like, let's not go rummage for stuff that's wrong if it's not wrong, you know?
Yeah,
But
we're good at making ourselves wrong. Really good. And as you said earlier, you can be very much in your head and overthinking. Like I identify with that. Certainly a lot more in the past. And I didn't have a ton of curiosity. Things were very black and white for me. That was how I was brought up. That's how my mind was oriented. It made sense. And then as I started to get curious and realize that I didn't need to have a position on everything. In fact, I didn't need to have a position on anything besides my own experience. And even that is my subjective experience. And as I got into that, I started to let go of the kind of the intellectual kind of the overpowering nature of that the mind can bring. The classic that the mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. And I think I love that framework because as I've stepped deeper into this work, I would say even 2 years ago, I was at a medicine ceremony and I was having a really difficult time. It was like, I would say the most challenging, um, slash terrifying experience I've had. And I kind of came out of the space with one of the sitters. Just like it just doesn't make sense. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it. And finally he said, "Can I offer you a piece of advice?" And I said, "Yeah." And like he's like, "Stop trying to figure it all out." And it didn't necessarily land in that moment, but about a year later, it all made sense. And the reason I bring it up is if things aren't going to make sense, when I get real curious about the way things are going, they don't make sense in an intellectual sense. It's such like our reality is governed by laws of existence that are so beyond my comprehension. And I think, my own framework growing up, everything made sense. And I think that's how we're brought up, where we, kind of indoctrinated into this system and this is how it all works. And as we start to peel back some of these things that aren't true, it leads to other things that aren't true. And it can be very overwhelming to try to make all these things make sense. And so just stop trying to figure it all out for me and get curious, be in the wonder, really just be in the mystery of what the fuck this is. Because if you think you can explain it, you don't get it. It is so fucking wild. And so when I can just really kind of rest into that, like, holy shit, may not stay there too much either because you got to get shit done, but really just remember there's no way for me to understand this. And really try to trust what I feel, much like we did when we were young babies. And, once upon a time, we really had access to that intuition. And I think this work allows us particularly as men, because women are much better. They're much more intuitive, and I think they hold on to it uh, much better than men do. You know, a lot of our programming comes in, and we override the feeling with the analytical mind. And you know, you'd brought up trading. Yeah, like I was a trader for 18 years, like you, was good at math. And actually what made me good at trading was when it got hectic in there, it wasn't so much that I was doing math faster than everyone. I just had a feeling about this trade was good, this trade wasn't, and I didn't always get it right, but it was ultimately when the shit hit the fan, I relied on my intuition more so than anything else. And so there's an element of that I've kind of recognized, you know, post trading as I've gotten into this work. It's like, oh, when I was guided by that, it was so much easier. And so I really tried to trust that now, whether it's meeting someone for a coffee or doing a podcast or whatever is the invitation. The mind comes on first, and it's like it gives its yeses and nos, and it's like that's all fucking noise. Like, do I really want to do this? And if it's yes, then I know exactly why. And if it's no, I may need to get curious about why is it that this is a no. And then now I have the ability to say no and speak clearly about why without making up some excuse that maybe is partially true, but not really. And so this whole idea of, you know, I love the Four Agreements and Don Miguel Ruiz's work, but it's really, can I be impeccable with my word? And I've only gotten to a point where I'm much better at that because I know who I am. And in knowing who I am, I know what I want. I know what feels right. And I know how to say no with clarity and not the distortion of like a weird message that I've sent out plenty of times when it's not absolutely true. You know, so really just getting clear and clean on the response back. And I'll rewrite them a few times with less words, like, what am I trying to say? And so it can be challenging, but it also, you know, I think I've gotten over the fact that I'm going to hurt someone's feelings. Like, that's not true. And what people really appreciate, I believe, because I really appreciate it, I appreciate when someone's direct with me. If it's a no and they're direct, like, I fucking love that. I maybe would love it to have been a yes, but the no I receive, like, got it, thank you. And all those men and women in the past that have done that for me, they were just like, I feel like planting little seeds in me, like, this is how you're impeccable. This, like, do this. And it took me so long to be able to do it. You know, I have friends be like, oh, he's so short with his responses. It's like, I just appreciate that he doesn't give a fuck. And he's not a dick about it, but he doesn't care. He's just, this is who he is. You know, I've had some friends that they've just always known who they are. And I really admired that and just wondered if I'd ever have the ability to do that. But I feel like I've gotten to a place where I feel like, yeah, I do that in my own way now. Maybe not as abrupt, you know, and terse with, you know, the response. I still, you know, have a little bit more love in there, I would say. But that's perfect. You know, that works for me.
Yeah. It is so funny to think. I mean, even the smallest stuff, when it's a no, this immediate jump to like, what are we going to tell them about to justify this no? It's exhausting.
Exhausting. Yeah, dude.
Oh,
Because then, you know, a lot of times for me, I would give it the maybe response and push it off. And that's just the hanging over your head versus, and sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's someone you know pretty well and they want to, hey, let's get together. It's been a while. I'm like, I don't want to. Like, I mean, I like hanging out with you, but right now that is so not a priority. And that's the part that I still struggle with. I got a few of those that are outstanding right now that I'm like, how do I say no? Because I kicked out the maybes just to buy a little time because I don't have a good answer for that. Those are like the more Jedi level kind of responses that I'm still in the dojo working on.
My wife calls me out on those all the time.
Oh, how so?
Are you familiar with? Do you know Mark England in Lifted?
Oh yeah, Mark's been on the podcast a couple times.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Huge
Okay,
fan of
cool.
Mark. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. I guess I'm not surprised by that at all. Yeah. So I've been, studying with them for the last year or so, and he calls it soft talk. Probably, maybe, possibly, think, might, feels like, sorta like, you know, one day, and I do that all the time. I mean, my wife's like, "Hey, XYZ birthday part, whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, maybe." Or like it keeps you from making a commitment to yourself and to other people. And when you start, I mean, Mark has and Enlifted has the soft talk challenge. They've got a piece of paper you can print out,
He
and
gave
you
me a
just
wooden, I
oh
have a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
wooden, yeah, I got one in my podcast studio. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, it's great. I mean, and it's like holy shit. When you first start to notice these things, how often you're doing it with yourself and with other people, even in your own head. It's constant.
Yeah. And for you, the beauty is you get to practice with your wife. Like that's a safe space to do that.
Hmm.
Where you get to say, I don't really want to go to that or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? Versus, with friends, it becomes a little be a bit challenging. I mean, unless they're close friends, then you could be honest with them. But the ones that are like just outside that inner circle, it's
Yeah.
maybe they're trying to build a relationship and you'd like to, but just like not right now. Maybe in 6 months, there's like a different flow where it's like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
But I think, in this, what I found, I had a really difficult time with boundaries.
Hmm.
Um, I I was prone to saying yes to things that I didn't really want to do, but I wanted to be a good guy. I wasn't necessarily working a job while we were here in Austin, so I had a lot of free time, and I can give my time here, and I can do it. It just really came out of not knowing who I was, is back what I was saying earlier, like just not really understanding. And so then still trying to be the good guy and show up for people. It's funny. I heard someone say the other day, I'm not interested in being a good guy. I want to be a good man. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's it. There's a fucking major difference. I spent a lot of my life trying to be a good guy and, trying to be a good man as well. But like the good guy thing, I think was leading. And now it's like, I just want to be a good man. And understanding who I am has allowed those boundaries to really tighten up and not be so leaky. Um, and then you just become more trustworthy. I got some really close friends and I've got, one buddy, love him, love him, love him, but he's terrified to challenge me. And I got my other buddies who don't give a fuck. And so who do you think I'm going to share the most intimate things with when I really need feedback?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not real feedback if it's only one affirmative every time.
Yeah. And so like in being honest with people, as challenging as that can be, you're building trust. And even in my relationship with my wife, Peyton, when she's seeing me spending time with this guy and guys who just, in her opinion, she's like, what are you doing? Why are you giving him your time? Like he's just trying to get something from you, or he's is very transactional. And I can maybe sense that, but again, I was just like not. super clear on who I was, but she could see it. So she's seeing this lack of discernment. She's like, well, you're not like super trustworthy. Not in the sense that she's afraid I'm going to go do something with somebody, but the fact that like you don't really know who you are. So you know, how can you really be trustworthy? And I just started to recognize that. And I think, I'm at a point now where I'm super discerning. And uh, I think for those listening, when people want your honest opinion, man, they really want it. And that's how to deepen a relationship. And, I want to encourage this one friend. Like, I kind of got to let him know. Like, there's stuff that I'm not sharing because you don't call me out, you don't challenge me. Like I need you to if you want this to deepen because there's room for us to grow, like I need you to call me out on something that you don't agree with. I may not agree with you, but I need pushbacks. Like this is what the brotherhood's for. So,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the relational aspect takes it to a whole nother level. I think my inner journey was confined to alone in a room for a long time. And it goes that I mean that limits it. I mean our life is relational. What else is it if it's not in relationship to others? And uh I went through Joe Hudson's course. Have you paid attention to his stuff?
it's so funny. I was just with a group of brothers last week and one of our guys, he does a lot of great work, has been working with Joe and his wife.
Mm.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And he's like, holy shit, this guy and his wife are gangsters.
dude. You should get him on the show. It's incredible. I
Really?
mean, he's got like live coaching on YouTube and stuff like this dude, but what's cool is he started, he breaks it up into three awakenings, right? The head awakening, the heart awakening, and the gut awakening. So like gut, more nervous system, more kundalini, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Energy work, that sort of level. Heart, emotion based, obviously feeling based, emotion based, and then head, which is, that more traditional, Buddhist path or whatever you'd want to call it. And it's cool because his journey was the first, he spent like 7 years or something like that, really focused on just neck up conscious evolution of your mind only. And
Wow.
then his journey with his wife led to the emotional component. And so it's the way he brings and the way he reads, he's amazing. But anyways, all his work is relational. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're on with somebody else, it's eye contact, it's holding all these things in relationship to another person, which I mean, it was like this is his intro course. It's like the connection course, it's called. And it was like 3 weeks, 2 days a week of a couple hours. And you're going through exercises with a partner. You're verbalizing things. They're challenging you to like make judgments about the person in front of you. And it is freaking cool, man. Like, it was really hard, but so intimate and so cool and powerful. Um, I don't even remember why I started talking about that.
Well, I'm curious, like, how did you end up launching the podcast? Like, what was, your journey to get to questioning all these things? I mean, I see it very similar to, the journey that I've taken in life. So what was your, kind of entry into this?
Oh man. So I have a health and fitness coaching company that I've been running for like 5 years now. And I got into health and fitness in high school. I was super delayed, like growing up, like puberty wise. And that's kind
Mm,
of what drew me to the gym. And then it just turned into this obsession: nutrition, fitness. And then college, majored in finance, just like shutting people out, optimize, become the best. And I don't know, something cracked pretty quickly for me. Like I went and got a job in wealth management and I was just like, fuck this. I even if the money was, I was like, fuck this. So I actually went and became a fireman because I was like, I want to do something. I mean, really, I think I just wanted to work out and have it jive with health and fitness.
Yeah.
And then I started online coaching. And, early on, I started social media, things like that. And I think that the coaching just turned into another replacement after I got in really good shape. I wasn't very connected with other people. I was just obsessing. So I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't go do things. I wouldn't eat certain foods.
Hmm.
And then I think that kind of got replaced by look how smart I am online. Look at my
Hmm.
content, look at what I know. And then I started helping people, and I really quickly realized like it isn't about. I mean, yes, people are very misled by information with nutrition and how to get in shape. So yes, there is some refining and like clarity that needs to be provided, but it's shit going on. And then that was like at the same time. But I can't talk about this without saying I did a 5-MeO journey a couple of years ago, and I've heard you talk about that. Uh, and holy shit! So that kicked off a deep year for me. I mean, I had scaled the business a ton in the first 2 years. There was this hint of like I'm not providing as much psychological and mindset support to these people as I could be, but I think I kept that pushed down. And then that journey saw a lot of these patterns even further, and that's kind of what kicked it off. It's funny to me because I've thought about this, and I'm sure you've seen it. Like I can't count the amount of times I've heard people talk about psychedelics and be like, "It's not about the psychedelics, man. You got to do the work." And it's like, okay, but 5 minutes ago you were just talking about how you've done 150 ceremonies or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's just hilarious to me because it's like I can't deny that 5-MeO freaking cracked open so much.
Hmm.
And yeah, looking back, oh my God, all the hard work has been since then. But holy shit, did that help turn the ship a few degrees?
Yeah.
So anyways, like, this is kind of right now, I'm just doing it to talk to people that I want to connect with and learn from. Um, and we'll see where it goes. The the main thing is health and fitness coaching, and so yeah, I think you're like my probably 10th or so
Yeah.
guest, and
Hell yeah.
dude, it's already been a challenging practice with trying to turn on this mask, trying to
Yep.
get the validation, and then also sitting back and being like, hey, just let this person share their amazing wisdom and not try to be knowing or smart. And it's been a fun new journey, man.
Well, you did a hell of a job today with that, doing exactly that, and that's I appreciate that because that's how I want to be in my podcast too. Like, just kind of roll the ball out and go off what's being shared and what's alive for the guest. And I still do it for the same reasons that you're doing it right now. I just want to meet cool people. I want to learn and ask questions, get curious about what they have to share. And other people listen, great, but it's first and foremost, it's for my own, yeah, curiosity and as I'm what 6+ years in, there's something I think that happens with, you know, well, it certainly happened for me, my ability to just listen and follow the threads of what's kind of most interesting. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits of having your podcast, having your own podcast is that you're called into deeper listening and deeper presence, especially when you have the orientation that you have, where it's like, I don't need to show everybody how smart I am. I want to give space for the guests to share what they're here to share. And then it's just like tuning into that. And, like I've gone through periods where I've had a bunch of questions prepared, and now unless I really know nothing about the person, which is super rare, I usually am friends with the person that's coming on, or I've had some sort of relationship. Um, I don't do any prep. I really want to talk about what is alive for them and ultimately for me on that given day. And there'll be some things about their work that I'll definitely want to highlight, but ultimately, let's just have a conversation where we're just two people in the pocket talking about whatever. And if we're really connected, it's not going to matter what we talk about. It'll be cool, interesting, insightful, honest, vulnerable. No one's the expert, and just people sharing their own experiences. And yeah, the podcast has been an amazing place for me to really get to know myself better.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I mean, around that time, that 2024 was definitely the darkest period of just like, what the hell is going on? What am I doing? What have I been doing? That's when I found your show. I don't know how I found it, but just so many amazing insights I've gotten from it.
Mm.
So, and yeah, I mean, definitely one I've been, as I listen to you now, it's total change in listening now. Like there's a consciousness to how is Cal bringing up questions? How is he sitting with, like the engagement of it. But either way, yeah, dude. What one note I have written down here that has come up a few times that I'd love to hear your current take on is just that question of who am I? I mean, it really, I think nothing distills it down better than that. Let's be more who we are, become more us. And it seems to me it's more of a question in a state, or it's more of a state of being than a question that has an answer to you. Does that seem right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm really, for me, I know that certainly for like a lot of my friends, I'm kind of like the tip of the spear that's going out and trying different things. It could be psychedelics, it could be different practices, working with different somatic healers, I'm just kind of trying it all. And so I know I'm curious, and I want to be on the kind of front end of trying these different things out. But ultimately, like I'm like, I'm here to like uncover my blind spots, and then just show up. I mean, really, just with impeccability, just to the 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 more clear I get on who I am, um, yeah, I guess to show up as a bridge for people who haven't explored these different things, and whether I talk about it on the podcast or talking about it in our men's group or however, me to go out and then bring back what I found out on the frontier, so to speak. And so I really want to be a guide slash explorer in that way. And then certainly bring on people that have done the work that I haven't done to bring that into people's awareness. And then if it resonates for me, I'll go try it. It's a really just always trying to stay in the mystery of this whole experience. And so just try to stay super curious, not wedded to any, ideology or dogma or any of that. Just be open to what's out there, and change my mind if new information is revealed.
Yeah. So much more fun than
It's so much easier. Yeah.
that fix me meant, oh my God, because it's like I'd find some new, it's like, oh, bioenergetics. What a cool practice. I'd go into that. Oh my God, I'm so broken and I have to fix. And now it's just like, oh, that sounds super cool. Like, let's just see where it goes. Let's try it out. See, it's enjoyable instead of like anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I,
Yeah, there are plenty of opportunities for us to find out where we're not well, whether it's through doing blood work or doing some, biofield work. And there's so many different ways. And to your point, I think like finding those things out is great. And when things aren't optimal, awesome. That means you have an opportunity to upgrade. It's just an opportunity. If things are working great, awesome. What's the next thing? But if that's our singular focus is fixing ourselves, which I can speak to my experience of feeling like for a number of years I needed to be fixed. It's never going to happen. We're always going to have things that are suboptimal. Fine. I think one of the things that we really struggle with as a society, I would guess, but even in particular for men, is contentment. That feels like the opposite of achieving and providing. But for me, it's like, why be on the hamster wheel the entire time? Hop on it when it's necessary and then kind of rest into what's been created and what's going well and the things that are your areas of genius or your gifts. But I think uh, it doesn't really vibe with our culture of grinding it out and this achievement based, how we're really put those people up on a pedestal, the ones who have been the most kind of successful in the traditional sense.
yeah.
But it doesn't need to be that way in my experience. But you're fighting against a lot of what's out there. Certainly we see it on social media and Instagram, right? Like people trying to help people, great. But if that's all you're seeing, I ended up unfollowing just even like a lot of friends that were having that consistent message of like coaching. And it's like, I'm just not in a season. If that's in my feed, I'm going to think of ways that I'm not optimal. And I feel really good. And I'm not being ignorant to like what maybe needs a little more attention. But I just try to like carefully curate, like, I like funny shit on Instagram. Few conspiracy things in there too, but I try not to do too many because then the feed gets into that. But I like to laugh mostly, and it's like I had a friend. He was on the podcast, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and my guy was he puts out old clips all the time, and he put his clip out, and I didn't follow him anymore because he was very like, just the stuff he was putting out was amazing, but I just wasn't in a season of wanting that. And meanwhile, I had almost 2,000 people I was following, and I got it down to 300. So there was like a lot of cuts I had to make.
Hmm.
And it was nothing personal, but he kind of butthurt because he went to like he was gonna repost it, but he didn't for some kind of weird reason. It was a clip of mostly him, but he didn't like the way he looked on the video. It was kind of weird. He's like, I don't know if it's going to get as much traction on my feed. And I'm like, you're fucking way overthinking this, dude. I don't care if you
Yeah.
post it or don't post it. Like, I don't know who, like, does the collaboration or not, but no one has ever reached out to me when they haven't and said, hey, man, I would do it, but I'm not doing it. It was all weird. And he's like, oh, you don't even follow me. And I was just like, yeah, man, like, I gave him like the reason, like nothing personal, but I kind of told him what I just told you. And then he unfollowed me. It's like, what's it? So lame. Like, I guess we weren't really, I mean, we weren't that close anyway, but I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you are just way overthinking this thing.
Right. Yeah. That's hilarious. I mean, yeah, I'm at this point, especially with the enlifted stuff and really getting just so much of my practice lately has just been what can I feel in my body? Where you get on Instagram and like you said, this knowing, this drive to know and narrate, I'm just like words, 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 like less words, please. Like less words because yeah, I feel you. And my X my Twitter X feed is definitely more my shadow side of this pursuit, where it's like if I scroll through my X feed, it's like, oh, there's a nutrient deficiency I'm missing and another supplement I need to add. And it's just like I pull back and I'm like, I didn't even know I had all of a sudden I have 10 problems I didn't even know existed until 5 minutes ago. You know, it's like it's amazing once you start to realize how much that's shifting your state. And yeah, but it is cool when it's like, hey, I can get on there. I love watching videos of people like fucking around in public and just like messing with
Yeah.
people. It is so funny. Like people are hilarious. Uh,
Yeah, and like, and yeah, we can be unconscious of what the feed is showing us. I mean, I've gone through seasons of following a lot of conspiracy stuff, and when you start watching like they'll obviously just feed you more, and then what ultimately happens is I start to see it everywhere. It's like anything, right? And so if that's what I want, if like the month of April, like I'm just going into that season, okay, but it I've got to be really careful about what I click on and who I follow, because ultimately, like right now, like I just like the funny shit, you know, some heartwarming stuff too, mostly just the funny stuff. It's just I want to go on there, laugh a little bit, and then kick off.
yeah, yeah. Um, dude, what's on the tip of the spear for you right now? What lights you up that you've been into lately?
Yeah. Ooh, it's a great question. Um, I will say this: my wife and I just went to Japan. I got back a couple weeks ago. Like, I can't wait to go back. I've never been there before. It's amazing. We were in Tokyo, Kyoto, and a couple other places that were a little kind of out of the city, out of the urban life. But I want to do a little bit of traveling, a little more traveling this year than I've done in the past. So I want to go back to Japan in the fall. Uh, there's a chance I might go to Colombia, Ecuador to do maybe a little bit of medicine work with some beautiful elders.
Nice.
And so yeah, I'm curious about stepping a little bit deeper into the medicine work. Not in the sense of like doing a bunch of medicine work, but really tracking those elders um that that really holds such an incredible container. And I've had the great fortune over the last couple of years to sit with, the best of the best in a sense, like really just special humans. And so there's a lot for me to be learned in those spaces and in listening to their stories. And so very humbled in those experiences. And I would say that's really alive for me right now. I've done a handful of medicine work over the last 8 years. Um, yeah, and it's been really powerful. So I'd say that those are a couple of the things.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
What's if you don't mind sharing, what medicine has been most, I'm sure they're all different in different ways, but what's top of mind as far as most impactful and transformative?
Yeah, I would say that I had some really beautiful experiences on ayahuasca. Um, very kind of profound. And then I had sat with 5-MeO a few times, and what I realized when I sat with it the last time about a year ago, I hadn't gotten to a point where that everybody talks about. So the first couple times, like I got to a certain place, but not the breakthrough, full melting into oneness. Really for me, it gave me the felt experience that I am held. This thing is there's so much out of your control. There's so much out of my control. So just surrender to, what is. And so that kind of took that concept from an intellectual understanding to like, I know what this feels like. And the mind had no place in that experience, as I'm sure you can remember. So 5-MeO was really beautiful. And then I really enjoyed sitting with Wachuma.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was, really gentle, but I would say I don't get as much post-ceremony integration work, I would say, from the Wachuma, or I haven't yet, as much as I have with ayahuasca, but I would say those are kind of the ones that I would say, I lean towards. Yeah, how about you besides 5-MeO? Have you sat with anything else?
So, I had done a couple mushroom ceremonies prior to the 5-MeO. I was also on an SSRI for those. So that's
Mm,
been a whole journey for me. Like, I went on that mid 20s. I ended up coming off for the 5-MeO. That's a whole can of worms. I'm going to try to find somebody to come on the podcast to talk about that because there's an extra element of people get withdrawals. There's like a lot of health impacts from it. So anyways, they can blunt an
yeah.
experience quite a bit just because it's messing with your serotonin receptors and stuff. The 5-MeO, I came off of it prior to that. And then about 6 months after 5-MeO, I did a series of 5 ketamine treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I mean, compared to, and I imagine this is kind of, I've never done ayahuasca, and with the mushroom ceremonies being blunted, I imagine this is like a milder version of what those can be. But after that 5-MeO, obviously, the 5-MeO, you're not really working with any ego contents, let's say,
Okay.
because it doesn't exist. It's
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
which, like, to your point of that felt sense of going there, even though it's like, is that experience true for me right now? Of course not.
Mhm.
But that glimpse, I mean, gosh, I'm like, of course, there's so many factors in getting a healthy experience with these things. But that being said, I'm like, oh my God, if everybody just, I mean, it cuts through yeah, obviously. I mean, that's a whole episode. But, anyways, after that, I kind of came out of that. It was my first, like, true, like, deep experience. It
Yeah,
was
dude, you went right for Mount Everest.
uh,
Damn.
right. So, like, I mean, it was 6 months of, it was tough. And then the ketamine was like, so it's obviously more mild,
Mm-hmm.
but holy shit. Those journeys were, as far as working with patterns and ego contents and, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I hadn't looked into any parts work or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
before that. And then I
Mm-hmm.
learned about it after, and looking back at my experiences, it was like, it was really, really helpful as far as working with childhood things and more stories and patterns. So yeah, man. Those are mine. I definitely feel called to back to back to it, but with the 8-month old and things right now, and that, I mean, grant very understandably that destabilizing 5-MeO experience was
Yeah.
a little destabilizing for my wife as well. So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a
Understood.
it's a sensitive conversation because it'll cut through, it'll show you some shit real
Y-
quick.
Yeah, I definitely had, as I started my journey, uh, my wife had her concerns because things were changing, and she's like, "What's that mean? Well, who are you gonna turn into, right?" Which I didn't have the answer to, but I've had extensive work with ketamine, and Yeah, that's a very similar experience in that the stories that we're believing we become very aware of them, or I became very aware of the stories. And then as a contrast to that, I became very aware of what was actually true within me. And it like kind of turns off the mind in some ways, and it allowed my heart, my soul, whatever of like my essence to become super clear. And so it really just kind of quieted, it almost like took the brain offline in some ways. And so I found it extremely useful because it doesn't, there's not a, it's a little bit more on the nose. Yeah. Of like what, to your point, using that with parts work, it just identifies things pretty clearly of stuck points and stories and um, where other psychedelics can be more like, what the fuck was that? I can maybe pull a few things from that, but um, yeah, I feel like it's almost like more of like an instructions manual for moving forward with kind of identifying these, yeah, stuck points.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually where this podcast name came from. One of those sessions. I mean, that pattern of something's wrong with me, the shame or the badness, the I have something to hide. It was a beautiful like 5 sessions because it was like one of the first ones there was a very strong experience of the exhaustion of trying to keep things down. And it was like this
Mm,
experience of being in the depths and just like whack-a-mole of just nonstop. Ooh, we can't have that come up. We can't share that. We can't, just controlling. And with that, also just letting go of the experience in general, which was so hard for me. Like,
yeah.
hey, just let it happen. Like, we don't need to make sense of this. We don't need, like you said earlier, we don't need to wanting to have. Ooh, I went into this and I discovered that this thing that happened, and it's like just let it go, just
Yeah.
be in it. And then one of them actually was like a profound, I like just total, feeling of oneness, which was wild to me compared to the other experiences. Like it was so strong. But anyways, on the last of the 5, the first few, there was this point I would get to in this, this image of the depths of me of that we wouldn't open, like we wouldn't go fully down. And then the last of the 5, I went down there and it was like, oh my God, there's nothing. Like I was like this expectation of, hey, there's something in here that you can't share, you can't handle. And then it
Oh,
was this beautiful just, oh my God, nothing's wrong with you. Like, and it's so funny because all of those, the most simple phrases you hear in your life that they either hit or they don't. I came
yeah.
out of them with like, the I'm trying to think of a couple other, but that one was huge. Like nothing is wrong. But like truly feeling that nothing is wrong and feeling it fully, like it's just been a pointer like for me and a reminder, so and ketamine too. I mean, I think it's way less daunting for people because I'm like,
Mhm.
I've told my parents, I'm like, hey, you should do some psychedelics. They're like, what the hell are you talking?
Yeah.
And but I feel like ketamine it's you can go to a clinic, like it's more approachable
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
So um yeah, but what's interesting, I'm curious your thoughts on this. After those 5, I went back for like a couple months later I did one at the same place. And then a
Mhm.
few months after that, and it was kind of the last 2. It was like there's not much else. My takeaway was like I think I've gotten everything I've wanted to get from that medicine. Like kind of a closing of just, hey, there's not much more exploration here.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's common. And, we kind of get through these kind of seasons, and we're seeking some healing, and so we'll seek out different, again, in this case, psychedelics, and then we just feel kind of complete. And for me, it's in those seasons where it's like, okay, now it's just time to play and put all this into practice and integrate. And then down the road, if I'm feeling a bit stuck and I don't know my way out, then I'll just trust the call that something's going to present that will be like, yeah, I got to go do that. That feels like the right thing, rather than, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to do? And, for me, I just try to trust that call. And a lot of people will talk about that. You'll know when it's time. I know you've probably heard that. And trust this and just trust your intuition on it. And if there's any hesitation other than just general fear of the unknown of the experience, which is very common no matter how many times you've done it, if there's no fear, then just trust that you're going to get, what you're meant to get. But yeah, I'm not feeling particularly called to do medicine work right now. And if the opportunity presents for me to do it, some of the lighter work, like a wachuma, I'd be down. I don't think I wouldn't want to sit with ayahuasca next month, but I could sit with wachuma, so I don't really want to completely blast it open experience, which I can generally bring, where wachuma can be much gentler. Uh, and I'm curious about iboga at some point. It's just not I'm not quite ready for it, but I've had some friends that have had some just wow,
Yeah.
yeah, amazing experiences there. So I'm still a few out there that I'm curious about, and I'll just wait for the timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that it's just cool to hear the experience of people that have done quite a bit of it. And it seems like most of the time, and granted this might be survivorship bias, but most of the time the people that really explore these things tend to do less of it over time than more of it, which is freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like what a beautiful, I mean, yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Uh, yeah, and I always try to keep that in mind. Like I'm like some of these perspective shifts, it's so obvious looking back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to even relate to the state of mind before having that shift. But it's so real at the time. Like it was fascinating.
It's not until you start to embody it that you see it. You're like, because again, it becomes such an intellectual thing. It all makes sense.
Right.
Like I get it. So why can't I do it? And then you're in the kind of pursuit of that. And then once you start to walk it and embody it, you're like, oh, much easier now. I have a felt sense. And again, I think that's that whole journey to get it from your intellect into your body is like, it's the work in my experience. And it takes just continuing to show up with the prayer of whatever your prayer is, at whatever your altar is, that I'm here for this. And I want to know what I don't know, and with humility. And it's, you get on the other side of some of these things, you're like, oh God, I was making it so hard, but it was because I didn't really know. I knew about it. I didn't know it. And when you know it, it's that embodied experience, the embodied experience that 5-MeO can give you of, oh, wow, I'm so held. Like, sure, I have free will or whatever, but like, there's so little in my control. And that's beautiful because, like, in that experience, you're like, how could I have ever doubted this?
That, that right there. Like
Yeah.
that really, the feeling in that place where it's not just then, it was always. And all the times you thought you weren't okay or you weren't whatever. that's been super, like, so powerful to me because I just think about that and I'm like, at some point, well, it's right now, but I'm just not realizing it. What, like, that's a whole other, that's semantics. But at some point, like this moment too, this right now too, like you said earlier, appreciating it when you're in it and you're forgetting or whatever words you want to use. Like just remembering that moment of this applies to it all.
Mhm.
And there weren't moments I wasn't here. I was just so off, like, I forgot. Like
Mhm.
that's the most awe-inspiring part to me is just trying to remember that. Like it creates your North Star,
Yeah.
the trust.
Yeah, it's going back to that remembering. I agree. That's like we've forgotten for many different reasons we've forgotten, and the experience of psychedelics can give us that lens into what it felt like, what it looks like, whatever. And so then part of the work is to remember that when you're not in the medicine, as you're integrating and going back, when things feel really chaotic and hectic in your world, and you're anticipating trying to sort out like what's coming down the line, and a lot of times we are preparing for the worst, and so then that's in our field versus when I look around right now in this moment, we're in this physical space, like things are great. And my mind could easily turn to, well, you got to worry about this, and this is coming, and this is gonna, and okay, but like right now, how am I? Great. Okay. And then maybe you can drop into some of that feeling of being in the medicine, amazing, but just the remembering of what that felt like. Yeah, it can take you, it can get you back a piece of that feels really good. I don't feel like, I did it a year ago, and as beautiful as the ceremony was, I don't know that I would do it next month either. I don't know when I'll do it again. Some of these other medicines like Wachuma, like I am interested in deepening my relationship with it, understanding it more, like co-creating with the medicine. I think that's kind of the next path for me with some of these things. It's less, I mean, it's on some level, it's always about exploring like my own self, but really I want to deepen the relationship. So it's not like me just hopping on for the ride. It's me learning how to work with it.
Mm.
Um, which is I've felt a little more of that, but I know there's a lot of room there, and I get curious about what that experience could be like.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I've been asking every guest this question. You can give everyone you get 10 minutes with everyone on earth to have them do something.
Oh shit.
It can be anything. Uh, what would you have everyone do?
Well, I don't know if it's recency bias, but probably 5 MEO.
No, it's funny. You're the second guest that has said that out of like 10 people.
I mean, it cuts through the bullshit.
Yeah, it does.
Um, I actually don't know if I have a better answer than that. I think this, and I don't want to be misunderstood in put out the message that everybody needs to do all these things. I don't
Right.
believe that, right? Um, but I think for a lot of people, myself included, there's such a hard, crusty shell of this avatar we've built, and we put so much time and energy into creating our identity. And it's for me, it was only when I kind of dismantled that in many different ways mostly through the use of psychedelics, was I able to remember like who I am beneath that. Um, and so I just think it can accelerate that growth, in healing, but really the growth and understanding and getting to know ourselves and being able to see ourselves and hold that version of ourselves with such grace and care and non-judgment. I think it's one of the beautiful things that these medicines can do. So I really do think that that work is important for a lot of people, and it's got to be done the right way. I know that goes without saying, maybe, but it's really the facilitation and um, there's stuff to be learned from not proper facilitation too. I don't recommend it, but I've had that, and there's lessons in that as well. But there's we've been told that these things are dangerous, and in some cases there is an element of that. But given our society's reliance on sugar and caffeine and nicotine and alcohol and fucking opioids, like what are we talking about? Like these are the safest things on the planet that change you for the better. Da 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 da. So, and it's amazing. There's a big, I would say renaissance happening, but obviously with MAPS and Rick Doblin, he's been doing this for 30 plus years, but now with President Trump, with Joe Rogan talking about pushing FDA executive order through with regards to ibogaine, like, yeah, that shit really works. It changes people. Um, so hopefully that's the beginning of more to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I mean, God, the limited data we have, it's, yeah, like you said, alcohol. Are we like,
Mm,
yeah, like you said, what are we talking about? It's not even remotely, yeah.
and these are part of the things, right? These are in that basket of like as you start to awaken to some of these inconsistencies, like this doesn't vibe. All these things are good that have been in our society, and these things are bad. And yet when you have the experience of both, you're like, what are we even talking about? But they keep pushing that narrative. And there's a lot more that comes with just that piece, but in the awakening of things that simply aren't true that we've been told are true. And the more courage and curiosity I feel like we can have in exploring those things, it allows us to let go of this identity we've built, because it really only hampers us. It puts us in a box, our own box. As we start to let go of those things, I think we get to the essence. Got to the essence of like who I am. I'm still do some of those things, but I don't identify with them like I did in the past. And in the beginning, it's pretty terrifying because that's all is this identity. And as it gets peeled away or blown away, and you're in this kind of dark night of the soul, finally you get to the point where you feel so free from not having to be that thing, because it is a role versus like an essence. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, I'll throw obviously the great host of the Great Unlearn. I'll throw that below. Is there anything else you have going on that you want to shout out or share?
That said, the podcast, obviously the book, that again should be available for, it should be back in stock. It is in stock. I don't know. They've got some glitchy thing going on right now because I got the books a while ago. Anyway, we'll figure that out. But yeah, just the book and the podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll post that below too. All right. See you all next week. Thanks, Cal.
All right, thanks, Brooks.
Cal's podcast is The Great Unlearn, where you can find on all podcast platforms. And then his new book, Unlearn, Letting Go of Who You Never Were to Become Everything You Already Are, is available on Amazon, and I will link that below as well. And as always, if this conversation resonated with you, share it with one person who needs to hear it. That's how this show grows. I will see you next week.